The NFL playoffs have arrived, and if the regular season taught us anything, we are in for the craziest playoffs of all time. Now, I have filled out playoff brackets for the last 7 years, and every single year I have picked at least one of the Super Bowl teams correctly. And I've actually gotten progressively better at my brackets as I've gone on. Last year, actually, I predicted the entire playoff bracket correctly. Other than the Commanders run, everything else I got 100% correct, including the Eagles beating the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So I've got credibility. And I was actually really confident in those picks last year. But something feels different this time around. It feels like it's anyone's trophy to win, except maybe Carolina. And I don't feel super confident about any of these picks, but with all that out of the way, let's not waste any time and get right into it. So we're going to go through every game of the playoffs, starting the wild card all the way through to the Super Bowl. And we'll start with what I believe to be the easier games to pick and progressively get more difficult. We'll start in the NFC and then we'll do the AFC. So starting in the NFC with the 5-seed Rams at the 4-seed Panthers. Let's just start off by congratulating Carolina for making it here. They started the season as the worst team in the league, and despite losing their final game, they make the playoffs at 8-9. This is a good step for them moving forward, but there isn't much to say about this game. Despite the Panthers beating the Rams earlier in the season, this game will not be close. There's a reason that this is the Saturday afternoon game. There's a reason the Rams are 10.5-point favorites. Thanks for coming, Carolina. We'll see you next year. Rams win 31-13. All right, next up, we'll go to the 7-seeded Packers of 2-seeded Bears. So believe it or not, the Packers are actually favored to win this game. And I understand why. Experience matters in the playoffs, and first-year playoff quarterbacks don't typically perform well, that being Caleb Williams in this scenario. The Packers have that experience. LaFleur is a different animal in the playoffs, and the Packers are the reason the 7-seed matters. Only one 7-seed has ever won in the NFL playoffs. That was the Packers. Last year, the 7-seed Packers gave the Eagles their best fight of the entire postseason. If there's ever a 7-seed that can win, it's Green Bay. Now, another important thing to note is that the defense is required. That defense is required to succeed in the playoffs. And the Bears don't really have that. And you could say, well, the Packers don't either. They lost Micah Parsons. And I would say yes, but that does negatively impact their defense. But when did Green Bay get Micah? Just this preseason they got him. They didn't have him in the playoffs last 2 years. He wasn't even on their team. And as previously stated, they still showed up in the playoffs. Packers are one of those teams that improve come January. It's also important to note that this is the oldest rivalry in NFL history. Fun fact, these guys have only played in the playoffs. This is the third time ever. And on the recent side of NFL history, the Packers have owned the Bears. Green Bay outplayed Chicago in both meetings this season. The Bears only beat the Malik Willis-led Packers by a literal miracle. This is a really hard game to predict because the Bears feel like a much better team right now, especially with the Packers losing their last 4 straight. But right when the world writes the Packers off, that's when they show up. Packers win 28-24. All right, finishing off the NFC, we have the 6-seed 49ers at the 3-seeded Eagles. Now, I'll be honest. I was 100% sure I was picking San Fran to win at least one playoff game. And even after seeing this matchup initially, I was confident in the 49ers. But I'm not so sure anymore. Now, I like to look at what Vegas says because they almost always seem to know more than us. And I was shocked to see that the Eagles were favored by 4.5. I originally viewed this Philly team as the same as 2023. Coming off a Super Bowl appearance. Just lost an incredible offensive coordinator. Started off super hot, just collapsed late in the season, among many other things. And that year they went on to lose in the first round. Now, it kind of feels the same in this scenario. But there's no denying this roster is better than that season. Another fun fact. The NFC East, as many of you probably know, had a streak where there wasn't a repeat champion for 20 years. There was only one division champion that repeated this year, and it was the Eagles in the NFC East. I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, there's no denying this roster is better than that season. We also know Jalen Hurts always seems to play better when the playoffs begin. And in Philly, coming off a Super Bowl win, that is a very difficult environment to play in. Now, despite all of these factors, I was still feeling good about San Fran until the other day when it was announced that Trent Williams and Ricky Pearsall are still questionable, and I'm sure at least one of them will be unlikely to play. Now, on the other side of the ball, the entire defense is injured. They haven't been that great, which, as I stated earlier, is required to be successful in the postseason. Everything points to the Eagles here, which is why I think the spread is so large in their favor. But just gut feeling, not really a logic pick. I trust Brock Purdy and the Niners to win this one 23-21. All right, on to the AFC. 5-seed Texans at 4-seed Steelers. Now, almost everyone is confident with Houston winning this one, but I don't think it's that easy. Yes, defense is needed to win in the playoffs, but so does O-line. The Steelers will take advantage of that Texans O-line. And experience is important too. And no one in the league has as much experience in the playoffs as Aaron Rodgers. The Texans do have playoff experience as well, though, winning a playoff game in each of Stroud's 2 seasons. Now, we all know defense will be the name of this game, and Pittsburgh has been one of the best defenses of the last decade, but they have not been great this year. They've actually been quite below average. However, on the contrary, the Texans' defense has been elite, and this game will be closer than people think, but the Steelers' playoff window will be extended in what is possibly Rodgers' last game. And despite the Texans never winning a road playoff game in franchise history, and the Steelers not losing at home on Monday night since the 90s, I think the Texans win this 17-10, a low-scoring battle. Next up is the 7-seeded Chargers at the 2-seeded Patriots. And as previously stated, O-line is needed if you want to win in the playoffs. Luckily for the Chargers and their 32nd ranked O-line, they get matched up against the Patriots' pass rush, which is one of the weakest in the league. Now, the game is in Foxborough, in the cold, against the best playoff franchise of the century, the Patriots. Everything is set up for the Patriots to win this game. But let's say that that's not the case. Just fun hypothetical. Let's say the Chargers have the best O-line in the league. Let's say that they're coming off back-to-back Super Bowl wins. They're in SoFi with a packed house of their fans. Let's say every call goes their way. Give me New England. Because I know what Herbert is in the playoffs thus far, and that is a liability. Sure, Herbert's great in the regular season. He carries the Chargers. But as soon as the playoffs come around, he becomes a whole different player. Why? I don't know. I just don't trust him to win a playoff game this year, especially not with his O-line being awful and the environment in New England. Patriots win 27-17. All right, finishing us off in the wild card round, easily the hardest game to pick, the number 6 Bills at the number 3 Jaguars. Now, I am all about momentum, and the Jags have got more of it than anyone. They're playing great, and we know Trevor Lawrence can win in the playoffs. The Jags are a way better team than the Bills, and it's in Duval. That was awful. That was probably worse than Liam Cohen's I just did. I was just reading off my script. I didn't go with the bit until I was halfway through reading it. Duval. That's better. But this should be a no-brainer. Until you realize the one reason the Bills are even here. Josh Allen. The only one of the big 4 quarterbacks in the playoffs this season. The Bills rely on the run game. And the Jags have the best run defense in the league. Bills have number 1 run offense. Jags have number 1 run defense. Now, Buffalo's defense is mid, and we know Jacksonville will put points on the board. I don't really know what there is to say about this game even. Everything says the Jags will win this game, but I'm just not picking against Josh Allen in the wild card. Now, I wouldn't be surprised. This game is honestly a coin flip. And despite the Bills not winning a road playoff game in almost 35 years, I still think the Bills win 33-30 in what is the best matchup of the wild card round. All right, on to the divisional round. Let's go back to the NFC, starting with the 7-seed Packers at the number 1 seed Seahawks. Now, I've already talked plenty about the Packers, but to be completely honest, the main reason I picked them to win round 1 was who they were playing, the team that they own. And though I definitely think this game could be decent, I think this is the Packers' ceiling. The Seahawks roster is just too good. I didn't trust playoff Seattle going into week 18 based upon what I knew about Sam Darnold previously, and I saw how he played last year in the playoffs, which is going to make it hard for me to confidently pick the Seahawks in any game. Until I saw the game against San Fran. Week 18. Sure, he didn't play great, but he didn't lose them the game. And despite what the score showed, the Seahawks were dominant. That game changed my opinion on this team. Seahawks win 28-19. And they will be the first to move on to the championship round. Next up is the 6-seeded 49ers at the 5-seeded Rams. Now, I think this has potential to be the best game of the entire postseason. And if the Niners beat the Seahawks and got the 1 seed, I think I would have picked this as the NFC Championship. Ultimately, I think the Niners' injuries, especially on defense, will be the reason that they lose this game. McVay versus Shanahan, Purdy versus Stafford. I mean, this is going to be a really awesome game because I do think we will see this game at some point, even if the Packers lose. The crowd of this game will be red in SoFi, but it won't be enough to stop playoff Stafford. I think the Rams win 35-31. Now over to the AFC with the 5-seeded Texans at the 2-seeded Patriots. Back in cold Foxborough against a crazy crowd, Patriots feeling good after their first playoff win in the May era. Stroud, who has never made it past the divisional round, comes to town. Honestly, I think things will get ugly quickly. Like I have said, first-year quarterbacks struggle in the playoffs. And with the Patriots having a bad pass rush, they won't be able to take advantage of the Texans' biggest weakness. Drake May will be terrified the entire game, and rightfully so. The Patriots have had the easiest schedule of any team the last 20-ish years. And I'm not holding that against them. It's just that this will be a whole new beast. And I'm not sure that they're prepared for it. Now, Drake May's best quality as of now is his big playability. And to him I say, good luck. Good luck making throws against this secondary. This will be May's worst game of the season. But keep an eye out for him next season. I think the Texans win this one 24-10. I don't think it'll feel close at any point, really. Now, finishing off the divisional round, we have the 6-seeded Bills at the 1-seeded Broncos. Now, this one is tough. I think this is the worst draw the Broncos could have gotten. But I don't see them as a one and done. Now, this will likely be a close game the whole way through. But the Denver's defense is much better than Buffalo's. This game will come down to the very end. It'll come down to which quarterback ends the game better. It will come down to which quarterback has been more clutch this season, which is Bo Nix. I know that'll be a hard one for a lot of people to hear, but it's true, at least in this season. I think the Broncos win 17-14. All right, now, our final four. On to my favorite weekend of the entire year, the championship round. Now, our final four teams are the Seahawks, Rams, Broncos, and Texans. We'll start with the NFC Championship. 5-seeded Rams at 1-seeded Seahawks. Now, I'm sure you could guess what route I'm going here based on how I talked about the Rams-Niners game. I think this game will be pretty decent, and despite everything I've said about Sam Darnold, talking about I gain more trust for him, I do think he will make a costly mistake, and in a game like this, there's no coming back from that. The O-line is still questionable for Seattle, which is going to be big for the Rams. Seattle's defense will be really good, but I can't pick Sam Darnold to beat Matt Stafford in the playoffs. Rams win 26-21 and move on to the Super Bowl. Now, the AFC Championship. 5-seeded Texans at the 1-seeded Broncos. As a fan of defense, I am super excited for this game. As a fan of Denver, I am super terrified for this game. As I have stated earlier, momentum is huge, and the Texans are on an 11-game win streak up to this point. But that's when things kind of get scary. Now, momentum is good, but it's also just a matter of time before that wears out. The Broncos had their streak-ending game already against the Jaguars. The Texans haven't had that game yet. And I don't think after starting 3-5, they're going to win out completely and win the Super Bowl. But we can't base everything off of that. Both offenses are below average amongst playoff teams. And both quarterbacks have had bad moments. Both secondaries are great. This game will be decided by the trenches, though. Like, everything with these teams feels really even. It's going to come down to the trenches. And unfortunately for the Texans, that weak O-line that we've been talking about is going up against the best defense in the league, other than their own. And on the other side, the Texans have the best defense in the league, but they're being put up against the best O-line in the league. Denver is the worst-case scenario matchup for Houston, and it will be a close, low-scoring, sloppy game. And there's a team in this league that wins every single one of those low-scoring, sloppy games. The Broncos' 3 losses, the only 3 losses the Broncos had came in higher-scoring games. And we know this will not be that. I actually think the defining moment in this game will be a play by Bo using his legs, which, as a Broncos fan, we need to see more of. And I think the Broncos will win this one, 16-14, to go on to the Super Bowl. Now, I'd just like to say before we get to the Super Bowl, I did not think I'd be picking the Broncos to go to the Super Bowl this year at any point, but just how the playoffs line up, I think that's the Broncos' best scenario, because really and truly I thought it would be the Bills or the Texans. But the Texans just can't play Denver. If the Texans play Denver at any point, it's going to be rough, because that's just their worst matchup. I'll stop rambling, though. Finally, Super Bowl 60 in Santa Clara, 10 years after Super Bowl 50 in Santa Clara, where the Broncos won. The Broncos' run game will have improved at this point, with J.K. Dobbins making a return. A Super Bowl winning head coach in Sean Payton, the much better defense. And remember, defense wins championships. The much better O-line, which is also a major factor in winning championships. That's supposed to be a drum roll. Your Super Bowl 60 champions, the Los Angeles Rams. Denver won't be able to keep up with the Rams' offense, even with their elite defense, which has unfortunately gotten worse throughout the season. Now, not by a ton, but it has gone somewhat downhill. Now, no team in the history of the National Football League has been better at losing Super Bowls than the Denver Broncos, fun fact. This game will be a great sign for what is to come for Bo Nix. Getting the Super Bowl was already seen as unthinkable when he got drafted, and doing it his second year is unbelievable. And he will continue to get better, but this Rams team is just too good. Even if they've had hiccups this year, the Rams have been my Super Bowl pick since week 2. In this game, Matt Stafford will cement himself in the Hall of Fame just a few days after winning MVP. Though it is important to note that MVP almost never wins the Super Bowl, and I always take that into account, but this year has been so wacky that anything can happen. And chaos will happen throughout the postseason. Rams win 30-21. Matt Stafford will be the Super Bowl MVP. Originally, I was going to say Puka Nacua, but I think if he's lined up against Pat Surtain, it's not going to be... I mean, I still think he's going to do really good, but I don't think he'll be able to win Super Bowl MVP. So, yeah, I don't feel confident about this. I mean, I really like the Rams to win it, that pick, but this is going to be a good year. This is going to be an awesome playoffs because anyone can win it except Carolina. I mean, if the Jags beat Buffalo, they can go on a run. I don't think they can win the Super Bowl, but they can go on a run. The Steelers, I think they're kind of sneaky. I think they're sneaky. They could make a run. The Niners can make a run. If the Eagles win and the Bears win, that's a good matchup for the Eagles. Well, the Bears beat them in Philly. So either one of those teams could get to the championship. And they'd end up playing Seattle, who I still don't trust Sam Darnold in that big of a situation. Anyone, if, I don't know, I'm rambling. Anyone could win it this year, except Carolina, like I said. So there you have it, my full 2026 NFL playoff predictions. Be sure to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments who you have hoisting the Lombardi this year. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.